Thank you for your interest in boundaries for the highly sensitive person. In this video, I wanted to share with you what my take on boundaries is and what will be covered in the 3-week course. We'll be covering a variety of different ways of setting boundaries and practice role-playing with each other in this safe container to become more comfortable knowing when and how to set boundaries. One of my top values is kindness, and I have found that most people who value kindness in their relationships often have difficulty setting boundaries because they don't want to come across as unkind, hurtful, rude, etc. This also puts us in positions to be taken advantage of. Most of us have difficulty setting boundaries due to some kind of trauma that happened at some point in our life. So we could say that childhood is or was the issue. If we can recognize that it happened in the past, and sadly there is nothing we can do to change the past, but we can make new choices now, and then we can neutralize the fear that keeps us stuck. Then we can have different outcomes because we have more access to other possible ways to respond in situations. So throughout the 3-week boundaries course, you'll have awareness of different beliefs that come from having boundaries. And these are what keep you from having the boundaries. So I'll show you how to neutralize a belief in the bonus session, unless we have time at the end of the 3rd class. And this is what helps us have freedom in our life, is getting to these root beliefs. As a child, I experienced a great deal of trauma from birth to 13 years old. And that set me up to have difficulty in all kinds of relationships. I was 28 years old when someone asked me what my boundary was about something, and I looked at them inquisitively and asked, what's a boundary? So over the last 30 years, I've been doing my internal work and have come to a place of compassion and respect for myself and others, and I am here to support others on their journey. So people think of they think of boundaries in a variety of ways. So I want to take a look at some. So here's my definition of a boundary: is something you do, not something that you're asking the other person to do. You are the action taker. So here's a definition, or some definitions from the internet. I kind of put them all together. These are my favorites. Relationship boundaries are rules or expectations for interacting with each other that will determine how independent or interdependent two people will be. Boundaries in a relationship define what behaviors by others are unacceptable, what we are willing to allow and tolerate, and what we can do for another person. Boundaries help relationships be respectful and autonomous and let people maintain their personal space, time, choices, opinions, and activities within the relationship. Boundaries show where one thing ends and another begins, and helps each person figure out where one person ends and the other begins. So let's go over some different types of boundaries. Physical. Could be space, body, or things. So physical space could relate to a boundary about keeping out of someone's bedroom, for example, or respecting their space in the garage. It is strongly recommended to have boundaries about our body, such as, I would appreciate you asking me for a hug rather than just assuming I'm available for one. So we at times also need boundaries around objects, such as, please don't use my favorite cup. Emotional boundaries. That is a clear line of what is and is not yours to deal with. In my empath course, I help people recognize what emotions or feelings are theirs versus someone else's, and therefore they can spend their time more wisely, because when we're letting someone in our head and we don't know whose feelings they are, it wastes a lot of our time. Mental boundaries, the right to your own thoughts, values, beliefs, and opinions, and not allowing someone to take up residence free of charge in your head. Spiritual boundaries. This reference is from the internet and is cited at the end. Spiritual boundaries are invisible barriers that delineate your personal energy and protect your well-being. They protect your right to believe in what you want, worship as you wish, and practice your spiritual or religious beliefs. Spiritual boundaries serve as a spiritual armor, guarding your inner sanctum and warding off disruptive external influences. They are how we protect the health of our relationship with God or self. Spiritual boundaries encourage us to set aside time for prayer, meditation, and reflection, allowing us to deepen our connection with the divine and experience spiritual renewal. Conscious boundaries. I wish everybody could be this authentic. Here's an example. I'm not enjoying this conversation any longer, so I'm ready to change topics, or we can end our time today as well. Which works best for you? Wouldn't that be great if everybody could be that authentic? So, let's see, I think I skipped. Yep, conscious, unconscious. Okay. An unconscious boundary could be when a person yawns and becomes suddenly tired when you're in conversation. This could be an unconscious way of exiting a conversation, or suddenly they, quote unquote, remember something they need to go do. We often use unconscious boundaries when we can't think of any other way of ending a conversation. We also often sabotage relationships we're in so that the other person goes away because we don't know how to consciously end a relationship, or maybe we feel unsafe speaking our truth. In the 3-week course, you will definitely become aware of some of these unconscious boundaries as we go through the material. So let's look at the difference between codependent and interdependent relationships. Codependency is where one person is working tirelessly to fill the other person's needs and to make the other person happy without considering their own needs. In healthy interdependent relationships, couples will feel closely connected and intertwined, but still capable of making their own decisions. And this too in relationships, friendships, relationships within families. Same thing. It doesn't have to just pertain to couples. So what kind of boundaries are most difficult for you to set? So let's look at kindness. Here's a definition that I liked on the internet. Kindness is the quality of being good, gentle, caring, and helpful. It involves acting in a way that produces and fosters positive feelings. Kindness can mean different things to different people, but at its core, it is about being friendly, generous, and considerate. We often think setting boundaries is unkind, but speaking your truth and having boundaries is actually very kind. It clearly allows the other person to know exactly what your needs, wants, desires are, and know you. It doesn't leave them guessing and misinterpreting your actions. So using words to back up your actions is also helpful. Taking care of yourself is kind to yourself and to others. You're modeling self-care, and we all need to have that modeled. Sometimes we forget to. If we as parents don't give feedback and have boundaries with our children, they will not be prepared to go out in the world and recognize other people's boundaries. So it's never too late to set boundaries with your children, even when they're adults. Those children, they're always watching. So let's look at some signs of unhealthy boundaries. Weak or non-existent boundaries, sharing too much personal information with people who don't care or respect you, getting too close or attached to someone you barely know or have just met. Those are the people that fall in love really fast. Ignoring or compromising your own values, beliefs, and opinions. Sometimes we don't even know our own values, beliefs, and opinions. People pleasing, letting others make decisions for you, not saying no or not respecting another person's no, feeling responsible for other people's feelings and or happiness, feeling disrespected or mistreated by others. Feeling victimized by others means that we have abandoned ourselves. So this is a very clear indication we need to set boundaries. Feeling resentful or guilty for accepting things or rejecting things. So let's look at some benefits of healthy boundaries. Freedom, greater self-esteem and mental health. You value yourself more. Avoid burnout. Having balance between independence and interdependence. You can retain your own identity in relationships. Keeps your cup full so that you have something to offer others, because when we're empty, we've got nothing to offer. So when I did my market research before I put together my boundaries course, I knew I wanted to teach a course in boundaries. So I interviewed 21 people, and I asked in the interview one question, and it was, what would life be like if you had good boundaries? And this is a compilation of what the 21 people said. And a lot of them was repeat: empowered, joy, free time, me time, less anxiety, and better balance between personal and work. So what's next? How can you learn more about boundaries? Now that you have a little bit more information about boundaries, I wanted to share with you the other things that I'm going to cover in the 3 weeks of boundaries. So we have to have self-awareness and confidence in order to set a boundary. So the first week, we're going to talk about self-reflection. Like if we don't have time to self-reflect in a conversation of whether or not we need a boundary, we have to have that time. So we're going to go over that. Strategies for reconnecting to yourself, identifying personal values. That has been helpful for so many people I've done that with. Building self-esteem and confidence, identifying and overcoming limiting beliefs, and then strategies to challenge and change these beliefs. The second week, so then, we're going to get some information. You go out in the wild for the week and practice what you learned in that 2 hours. And then the second week, we're going to go over effective communication techniques and overcoming fear and guilt. So we're going to learn the difference between assertive, passive, and aggressive communication, techniques for assertive communication, because we do need that when we set boundaries. Slowing down communication. So when you're in a conversation and you're like, oh, something's off here, how do you slow down the conversation so that you can have those moments to self-reflect? And then handling difficult conversations, listening techniques, dealing with pushback and resistance from others. So like, what if they say no to your boundary? Recognizing the fear and guilt and the sources of fear and guilt in boundary setting, and then how fear and guilt manifest in behavior, the impact on our decision making, and then techniques to overcome the fear and guilt. And then again, you're going to have time to go out in the wild and practice these things and see what you notice, and then come back and we're going to talk about maintaining and adjusting boundaries. So consistency and follow through, dealing with setbacks and recommitting to boundaries, adjusting boundaries as needed, recognizing when they need adjusted, flexible yet firm boundary setting, dealing with boundary violations and how to respond when boundaries are crossed, and reinforcing boundaries with assertiveness. So throughout the 3 weeks, you will become aware of the beliefs that are holding you back from having boundaries in your life. And so if we don't have time at the end of the 3rd week, I will hold a bonus session where we will specifically do a clearing of the limiting belief of your choice. And then you'll also have some awareness of how you can change other beliefs, because we have more than one belief that holds us back. But I want you to have those 3 weeks to really get the one that's going to make a difference. So now you can Notice boundaries in different areas of your life, professional and personal. Now that you have a little bit more information about boundaries, notice how they're set, not set, and where they could be set. So sign up today to have more freedom in your life. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or text me. Thank you.